Today's guest, Moustapha Ozturk, has lived a fascinating life journey that started in the construction industry in England and eventually turned into a decades-long search for deeper meaning, peace, and spiritual understanding. His new book, Invoking the Holy Spirit, explores forgiveness, inner peace, perception, and what he believes it means to reconnect with God on a much deeper level.
Well, hello there, sir. How are you today?
I'm feeling great, Elsa. Thanks very much. I'm feeling good.
Wonderful. I am too. I'm excited. I'm in a good mood, all of the good things. I'm excited to hear about your book and your journey. This is one of my favorite things to do, just hear these author journeys and share really intriguing books, which your book sounds so intriguing. But I want to go first into a little bit of your background. You spent years working in construction and living what most people, and I don't mean this in an insulting way, I mean it in a wonderful, peaceful way, an ordinary life, right? But there was a specific moment where you realized that something deeper was happening spiritually. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I had a breakup in a relationship back in 1988, Elsa, and it shook me quite a bit, and it got me into a set of patterns of, working late at night, working early in the mornings and going out late at night, that sort of thing. And in the end, I reached a point of desperation several months after, my partner left me, and I screamed in the back of my head, into my head. I said, "God, help me understand." And he certainly did, because the next day I had these strange phone calls started to happen at workplace. Typically, the caller would ring up and say, "Tell Moustapha to come home. His dinner is ready." Strange phone calls. This went on for a whole month. Some of the phone calls would say, "We're coming to the site with a baby. We're going to bring a 6-month-old baby to the site, or a 6-week-old baby," this sort of thing. Always frightening the security guard, and they would sort of want to, threaten to call the police, that sort of thing. So that's what it was like, and it went for a whole month. Sometimes I had one call in particular. I remember it said, "Tell Moustapha the baby swallowed the marble," and it was shocking phone calls, And at the time, I hadn't, a partner left me, like I said earlier, and I was basically a single man, but so that was my life then. And then the culmination of these phone calls, which made me think this was something more than a crank call. These were more. And there was like over 20 phone calls over a 1-month period. And the last phone call was I'd gone to a girlfriend's house that evening, and she didn't want to see me because I told her before, maybe the day or two before, I was going to go to Spain to live for 6 months. And I must have upset her because she wouldn't even open the door to me. This was late at night. So I decided to leave her doorstep, and I went into my car and drove back to my home in Finchley in North London. On the way there, I had this strange thought, because I've been studying the Bible a little bit then. I've been looking for answers and various other books. And I remember the quote in Genesis where it says, "Let us make man in our own image." And then it suddenly clicked. I studied evolution before. I realized at that instant, this planet we're living on, all these lives we live in are replicas. They're copies. This is not the original Earth. And I refer to in my book, I call it the embryonic Earth. It's the original Earth. And God wants us to know we're his children. He wants us to know the original place where we came from. And I believe that, since the phone calls, I have developed my ideas further. But on that particular night, at that point, I decided to swing the car around and go head straight over to work, because it was getting really late now, and I didn't want to be late for work in the morning. So I thought I'll just sleep in the car. So I arrived at work, and this is now, I think if I remember right, it's about 2:30 in the morning. Before mobile phone calls, Elsa, yeah? So nobody had mobile phone. Well, there was a big chunky mobile phone, which was with a battery the size of a suitcase, but ordinary people didn't have mobile phones. Anyway, so I got to work, and the security guard was shocked to see me. He said to me, I just put the phone down again to a caller, and she said, "Tell Moustapha to come home. He's on the way to the site." And I thought, wow.
Oh, wow.
That was the last phone call I had. And that just proved that nobody knew I was heading to that site. No one. That is
amazing. That is so amazing. And it had to obviously, of course, been so disturbing and confusing, all of these things and not knowing what any of it meant. And I'm so fascinated that, one of the things that you did throughout this process was to turn to the Bible and to read words. So you can't help but believe that, something was leading you to these deeper discoveries, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And now your book, it came from these personal notes that you were writing to yourself during like train rides to work. Yes. And
yes,
at what point did you realize that this is something that is supposed to become a book?
So, yeah, thank you. So I started studying this book written by Helen Schucman, who was a professor at Columbia University in New York. And I studied this book before back in 2010. I didn't get a lot out of it, to be honest with you. You have to be, since I've realized you have to be in the right state of mind for this sort of reading and to connect with what the message he was teaching anyway. So as I was studying the book, I would start making these text messages to myself, WhatsApp messages, little notes for myself. And my journey, typically, the first leg of it would be an hour long. And I'd arrive at London Bridge Station. But shortly after starting these study notes, I noticed I'd arrive at London Bridge Station, a deep sense of peace. And then I realized, further along, this is not even my handwriting. It was like there was a determined somebody inside me helping me to write my study notes, if you know what I mean. And now, funny enough, this is the way Helen Schucman describes how she received the knowledge that she's written in her book, The Course in Miracles. So, yeah, this is how the book sort of came to be. So I didn't intentionally write the book, but my study notes, I shared them with a friend, and my friend got a lot out of it. It changed her life completely. It was in my book, my essential message is to forgive all your anxieties and worries away. And in doing so, you create space in your mind. It's almost like as if you're creating space in DNA to insert God's thoughts, if you understand what I'm saying. So, yeah, and that's what God does. That's the how I understand it works now. I understand that if you give God a chance, He will jump in and help you, and He will change your life.
That's so true, and I think that is truly at least one of the top most difficult thing for people to wrap their minds and their hearts around, which is forgiveness. It is. I think that is the one thing I feel like we struggle with so much and so constantly, and not just forgiving others, but forgiving ourselves, and just having that kind of peace. And I think people misunderstand forgiveness also when it comes to forgiving others, right? Do you find that people have a misunderstanding?
Absolutely.
What it means?
Even today with my wife, she doesn't understand it still. I don't think she really understands it. It's not so much you're forgiven the thing that's happened. That's done and gone. It's the anxiety and the pain that you have latched onto. That's what you've got to let go of. That's what you've got to forgive away. Because if you don't figure it away, it develops into thoughts, worries, and patterns of behavior that will haunt you.
Yeah.
And you need to let go of it, detach from it.
Yeah. Why do you think it is that we struggle so hard to let go? Like, why would we want to hang on to something that's so detrimental to our lives?
Well, the ego is a funny thing. The ego is like a ghost. It clings on to fear. And it constantly feels like it's under attack. And these experiences you have, and your reaction to them are like a comfort, if you like.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense to me. Absolutely.
In my book, I talk about, in the wild, if you're an animal and you're up against it, even a human being, an animal, or not an animal, a primitive man, for example, if you're living in the jungle, sort of, you can imagine it, can't you? You're up against it. It's no good being in your head.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to be in the moment to survive and to get the kill, whatever it is you've got to do to survive. And that can only be by being present. But most of the time we're not present. We're too comfortable. We're fed. We're living in the thoughts that will sort of keep us prisoner,
Most of our minds are so noisy and cluttered, right? And you talk about this, of course, in the book. And I know so many people are finding that so familiar and so relatable, of course. What are some practical things that you personally do to quiet your mind when life gets overwhelming?
Well, I mean, take this interview, for example. Yeah, this is great. I mean, this is a classic example. I mean, I've written up a little mantra for myself for today because I didn't want to be nervous,
Yeah.
So what I do is I take ownership of my multiverse. In my book, I talk about the multiverse. I believe, honestly, Elsa, that we are not this tiny little speck of dust individually floating around in the cosmos. We are more than that. And I believe that God has gifted all of us our own multiverse. So what I do every day is I want to take ownership of my multiverse. and I talk about this in my book. I talk about being up front on the stage. You are the star of the show. Yeah, this is your life. Own it. And the things that will make you cower and give you stage fright, if you like, life fright, is anxieties and worries. And they will prevent you doing what you want to do. And you will create, instead of the abundance that you want in your life, you end up creating the same old patterns that you've been used to, what you're stuck in. Until you climb out of the fear of a particular activity or event or something you want to achieve, you will stay stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that so much. And I think, it's one of those things I've heard, it's been said better, but I'll say it the best I can, that it's like your mind will believe whatever you tell it to. So if you tell it you should be frightened and anxious and worried, you will be, but if you tell it that, otherwise, it has no choice but to believe what you tell it. So you have to be very careful of what you tell yourself to do, right?
Yeah. It's like taking a breath in, I take a breath in, let it go, and just remind yourself, this is your life. You're the star of the show. Own it, and
I love
great.
that.
Yeah.
It is. And, another thing I find really interesting is that you describe spirituality less as a religion and more as an awareness and a connection. How would you explain that difference to someone who's never thought about it that way?
Yeah, I mean, what I say to people who don't believe in God, or who's sitting on the fence and have maybe no thoughts about it, I say to them, it's actually if you can get away from the dogma, the politics of religion, and just find your true self in peace, find that peaceful moment, meditate perhaps a little bit. And you'll start realizing, if you create space in your mind, you'll start realizing there is this presence in you, and it's closer than your heartbeat. It literally is closer than your heartbeat. And you'll find that. Yeah, you'll soon find. I was recently baptized, Elsa. About 2 weeks ago now, 3 weeks ago.
Congratulations, that's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and on the morning of my baptism, which on the week before my baptism was Easter week, and Easter Sunday, and that night I had a dream, and I dreamt, and there was several people standing around a grave, and I walked over towards this grave, and I looked down, and my son was in the grave, my youngest son, and I reached out, and I reached over to him, and I put my hand down there and said, "Aaron, wake up." And he stepped out of the grave. Now, this was Easter Sunday. I woke up and I saw the connection straight away.
Sure.
My first baptism, I've only just started going to church in November last year. And God sends you little signs.
Oh, yeah.
You've got to be attentive, and you've got to look at, and just start, looking at these things, and he helps you. He nudges you along, and he's there for you, I know, to me, that Sunday morning, I realized when I told my wife about the dream, my son's been missing for 3 days. He disappeared. He's gone off grid since Friday that week. But fortunately, I sent a text message email to his landlord, and we located him. He was hanging off cliffs down in Cornwall. Rock climbing.
An adventurer, huh? Oh, so great for a parent's heart, right? So great for a parent's heart when you have an adventurous child.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But no, the dream was about it was about the resurrection. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. It's so amazing. There's so many moments in life that if we're fortunate, we realize that they are something deeper and they mean something deeper and more. You specifically believe that you had direct moments of divine intervention, including a construction accident where you felt warned to hit the deck.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Tell me about that. Oh my goodness.
So this is back in 1994, if I remember correctly. It was a hot summer's day. I was in my office, and one of the workers there said, "Ozzy, there's a fire on the roof." So this building's right next door to Charing Cross Station, right in the centre of London. So I legged it to the roof with my colleague Toby. We grabbed fire extinguishers on the way up there, and then we raced up to towards the fire, which was at the other end of the roof. And it was horrible. It was gas bottles were on fire. There was 3 gas bottles with jets and horizontal jets of flames coming off them. The asphalt machine was on fire, which was the cause of the fire. Anyway, we quickly entered the fire extinguishers into the flames, which had no effect at all. Meantime, we could hear the fire engines coming up the Strand. So I said to my colleagues, and I said, let's leave this to the fire brigade. So he went back off in the direction we came, and I decided to go pick up my radio and walk a different route. So I grabbed my radio, and I was walking behind these empty gas bottles, a row of them, and suddenly a voice sounded in my head, hit the deck. So I instantly flew to the floor. I threw myself to the floor, and boom, in that instant, the message was received. The first gas bottle exploded. Wow! And I picked myself up, and I started legging it towards where my colleague was, and then boom, boom. It was a nightmare. It was like a scene out of an action movie, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did the one thing that we struggle so hard to do, which is actually listen. When we get that right, like so many of us, and I include myself in that. You know, I can think back on a few distinct times where I was hearing the message, and I was doubting it, and I wasn't listening, and I regretted it. So your regret would have been quite different than some of the ones I would have had. We wouldn't be here having this conversation, obviously, had you not listened to that voice. And, you know, again, we use the words divine intervention. And I know that I know we have, you know, non-believers out there that listen and tune in. And that's absolutely a choice that you can make. I can't comprehend the choice. I can't, when you have so much life experience under your belt and so many things showing you. And again, and I have to say, I just have to go back quickly and say, I love what you say about not religion, but connection. That's something that speaks personally to my heart and my understanding of, you know, what it is to know God and to have a relationship with God. And I think so many people get caught up in that religion, that word religion. And so many people have negative feelings towards church, you know, and what that represents to them in their minds. And, you know, that, you know, sometimes it's whether it's rigidity or hypocrisy or any of those things. But I feel like you just cannot go wrong when you seek that direct relationship, that direct connection, right? And I love that that's something that you talk about and emphasize in your book, and also that you speak openly about difficult seasons in your life, stress and loneliness, relationship struggles, exhaustion. Looking back now, knowing what you know and believing what you believe, do you think that suffering was part of what pushed you to this spiritual awakening that you've had?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's the same with everybody. I use this analogy now that a lot. It's like we're knowing of good and evil, Elsa, aren't we? This is the world where we know of good and evil. This is the crucible. It's like a crucible of fire where diamonds are forged, where new souls blossom into God's children. You know, this is where it happens. And you have to be courageous. That's what God wants us all to do, is to when we go about our daily challenges, what He looks at, what He gives us, the daily challenges, what rather than seeing it as a challenge, is what I do now every day. I actually look at everybody and everything, every gift as a gift. Yeah. That's the only way to look at it. And if you look at everybody as a gift, you will find you're awakening the courage inside you immediately, and you're connecting with God at that point. You've invoked the Holy Spirit.
Right.
And that is
even your most difficult, that applies to even the most challenging, difficult people in your life, right? Especially those people, I think, maybe.
You need to, there's only one way, and this is what Jesus taught to me. He said, you know, to love everybody, your enemy as well. You've got to treat everybody as a gift.
That kind of leads into the next thing that you talk about also in the book, which is non-judgment, our next hardest thing, right next to, if maybe not even more than forgiveness. Non-judgment is, wow, is that a challenge for people, huh?
That is a prison. That is a problem. It's like chains around you. You know, your judgments build your prison walls. And what it does, worst of all, Elsa, it prevents God's thoughts coming into your mind. See, this is where God, in my book, I say, this is where God helps us. You know, you give your mind to Him. You give your mind to Christ God. That is the only way. And if you're going to be filling your head up with rubbishy, pointless judgments, which mean nothing, are not going to affect your life, other than make you miserable.
Right.
You need to let go of judgments, and if you do, Christ will come in there and he will give you new outcomes. Your patterns, your poor patterns, your life patterns start to change. And this is what I found a lot with my friend, who's been practicing this a lot, and in my own life, obviously, but my friend also, she's making massive changes, big improvements.
Yeah. You mentioned your wife earlier. How does she feel about your journey? And I mean, first of all, she just has to be so proud of you and your accomplishment and everything. Do you find that she's at the same place? Does she need, you mentioned there was something you mentioned, I'm not drawing a blank, that she was forgiveness, that she was still working on the concept of forgiveness. I would imagine you've been very helpful to her on her journey as well. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my wife and I have a very fiery relationship. It's not a,
she challenges you then.
Yeah, there's no perfect marriage, I don't think. And we both say, we talk very honestly with each other, and we say it as it is. And I get, I take the bait, and I end up losing it, because I've, for that same reason, I haven't. I've got loads of, if you like, buried unforgiveness is still under the surface, and
Sure.
and this is what we have, isn't it? And it's getting them all out and dealing with them, and putting the light of your Christ light, if you like, shining it on your issues and getting rid of them. But yeah,
I think that's the most human and relatable part of everything that we've been talking about, because these are all the same struggles that we all have. And I don't think if all of us or any of us have it all figured out perfectly and are doing it perfectly, then we simply wouldn't need Jesus, right? We would have it all figured out, but we don't, we can't, we won't. And that's why we continuously keep giving it over and looking in that direction to help us daily, just simply become the better versions of ourselves. And some days, some moments we're going to fail miserably, and other times we're going to do a really good job. But it's a constant thing, and I love that your book actually gives that reassurance, because who wants to listen to somebody that says, I've got it all figured out, I have all the answers, and I'm doing everything right? Because we know better, right? This is I love the honesty and the humble nature of your book. And I love that you share all of this with others who are having the same struggles. It's just that beacon of light that says, hey, there is a way to navigate through this, and not only be such a benefit to yourself, but such a benefit to the people around you, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I got caught out, Elsa, about a year ago, I got caught out. I was doing a patrol on my site before I retired, a site tour, and a chap approached me in the high street. And he said to me, and he saw the logo of my jacket, the company I work for. He said, I need a copy of your public liability insurance. And I said, yeah, no problem. And I pointed him in the direction of the office. And but that wasn't good enough for him. And after about 10 minutes, I said, I've got to go. I've got to do my job. I've got to.
Yeah.
But that wasn't good enough for him. And he immediately took his phone out and started filming it and throwing accusations at me. And I thought, wow.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and he put the phone right up close to my face, and my body reacted, and my hand pushed his phone away, and then he decided to push my body, and I fell to the floor. It got out of hand, chaos in seconds, and and then he followed me for the next 5 minutes, filming me and throwing more accusations about my company and me, and in reflection now, all I had to do was say, no problem, sir. And let him frog march me, or just voluntarily take him to the office, and then give him his certificate, insurance certificate. Like Jesus says, if your enemy asks for your coat, give him your shirt as well.
Yes. So much easier said than done. And listen, that just made you even more relatable than ever.
Sometimes you get caught out.
Yeah, sometimes you do. But that goes back to the forgiveness, right? Like we can bring it all around, and we can bring it all around to these, really, I think, crucial principles that you lay out all throughout your book for just everyday life and improvement, really, and connection. And I think that's right. And correct me if I'm wrong. That's truly the core of this, to make this personal connection, and just having that changes everything for you, right?
Oh, it's a game changer.
Yeah,
Absolute game changer. I mean, I cannot imagine living without Christ in my life now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like you're living in the upgraded version of life instead of the basic version.
Yeah, what a great way to put it. I love that. Yes, I'm gonna use that, but I'll credit you with it.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, right.
And the price is forgiveness. That's all you've got to do. That's all that's asked of you. That's all that Jesus Christ asks of you, is to forgive, and He will iron out all your problems.
Yeah. And I think a great distinction probably to make too is that, like, forgiveness may not change the person you're forgiving, but it changes you in the best possible way, right? It gives you a peace like you never knew before. It's so life changing. Last question for you: what do you hope readers walk away with after reading Invoking the Holy Spirit?
Right. I want to give in my book. I give a reason why we're here. I want that conversation to be had, that there's a reason why God created or is given us this experience, this knowing of good and evil. And I honestly believe that, He wants us to know how He evolved humankind into its perfect form, which is Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's what He's done. He's evolved us. So my book, the conversation basically is to accept our situation, accept the good and evil that happens in our lives. It won't last forever, and accept that reason. There is a reason, good reason for it, and I want the people to stop thinking that there's this person who's going to come and save them. You have to let your own salvation come to you, if you know what I mean, through Jesus Christ. So Christ is the means for your salvation, and He lives in the center of your being, the Holy Spirit. And I want people to realize that, and don't wait for Judgment Day. That's never going to happen in your life. What will happen for you is you will receive Christ when you accept Him, and it's only when you forgive and don't judge, be indefensive, those sort of qualities. And I'd love people to have this conversation, really, amongst above all else.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful, timeless messages you have in this book. Tell everyone where they can find it.
Okay. So, you can go to Amazon. It can be found there. It's all over the place now. It's Walmart, I understand, in the United States, Waterstones, those sort of places. It's available in paperback, hardback. It's available as an audio book, and it's also available on Kindle, so you can download it to your phone. So Amazon and what else? Apple, all these places, Spotify.
Terrific. You get everywhere, anywhere and everywhere. No excuses. You can find this book. And of course, I'll have the link in the show notes for you guys too. You'll be able to click right on it and go right to it. And I hope that you do. I think it's such a valuable read for anyone who's seeking help with those, things that listen, everybody needs the book because we're all struggling with forgiveness, with non-judgment, with all of these questions and things that are weighing us down. So I think it's a wonderful read.
Prayer is such a useful thing to do.
Yeah.
People
so true.
Need to pray more.
Absolutely, they do. I enjoyed this so much. Thank you so much for taking time to sit and talk with me and our audience. And I wish you tremendous success with the book and more to come, I hope. Do you have anything in the works?
I am. Yeah, I'm writing a second book at the moment. I didn't intend to write the first book, but I seem to be making notes again.
That's the start. That's the start. You know what's next. Well, we look forward to it. We'll be keeping an eye out for that. And thank you again for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you in the next episode. Take care.
You've got a story worth sharing. Now it's time to tell it well. Whether you're an author, entrepreneur, influencer, or podcast guest, stepping in front of the camera or microphone can feel overwhelming. On the other side of the mic is your practical, encouraging guide to becoming a confident, authentic, and engaging interviewee. Written by media personality and best-selling author Elsa, this book blends real-world wisdom from hundreds of interviews with a touch of humor, grace, and heart. It's more than a how-to. It's a roadmap to presence, professionalism, and peace in every conversation.